And get quite literally in, we're recording. Welcome to another exciting episode. They're all exciting, but particularly exciting today of the Good Listening To podcast with me, Chris Grimes, the podcast that brings you The Clearing. It's also a place where you get a tree where we get to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. There's some alchemy and some gold, and there's also a cake, which we'll award you with at the end. And as a new strand, and congratulations, you are my first guinea pig, Mr. J. Rhoderick, we're going to also link to All the World's a Stage and all the men and women merely players. Each man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. So I bid you an extremely warm welcome, Mr. J. Rhoderick, all the way from New York City.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your wapum welcome. Very nice, thank you.
And what we have working voices in common, and very exciting, we're both comedy improvisation performers. You are the president of BizProv Inc.
Yes.
How
yes.
salubrious is that?
Yes.
And you're also in, obviously my comedy company is called Instant Wit, but you run Centralia out of New York as well.
I definitely don't run it. I've been a member of that collective for many years now, and it's family at this point, as I'm sure Instant Wit is for you.
And I love your humility there in not letting me make you the sort of chief of staff.
I'm the comptroller. I'm the chancellor of the exchequer. Yeah.
And I'd love to hear how you shape your show, because of the pictures I've seen, it always looks wonderfully anarchic, and you look a bit men in black, if you like, because you're all suited and booted. And
it emerged from doing a lot of physical practice 25 years ago with Shira Piven, who is from an improv royalty family in Chicago, and her family were involved in the early work of things like Second City and that community there. And so we did a lot of lifting and throwing and tossing each other and just getting sweaty in the context of being in these suits. And so I think the anarchy comes from our attempted commitment, even in our dotage, to assuming we ever get back on stage, to try to physicalize the play as much as possible, and not just try to think up jokes or games, but to try to be in the moment, in the scene, in the world, and to try to make it acting. It's a lot of fun.
And of course, I do short form, which is all about the bish bash bosh of the jokes and the format,
which is great. We love that. Yeah.
So do you do bits of short form with formats, or is it just let's just get going and see what happens?
More the latter, but we have plenty of tried and true characters that we've come back to. This isn't so much fun anymore right now this week with everything that's happening in DC, but we do these, Southern senator characters for many years, that just to try to play with politics and arrogance and high and low status. And we do tons of gags, many of them really immature and childish. So we're not too good for pie in the face and potty humor and all that stuff too.
Lovely. I love the cut of your jib. It sounds very, very resonant.
Well, thank you. I've got a new jib.
And I also love the fact that you wouldn't be a stuffed suit either. You're doing it in suits, and yet, and we both do a lot of work stuffed in a suit within the corporate arena. But like me, you like to bring energy and dynamism into the corporate arena as well.
I try to. I think that if there's not energy in the room or in the room, if there isn't some degree of levity and laughter or surprise, I just feel like, why not just email it to everybody and have them read it like an instruction manual?
I was going to ask you.
I get bored,
Right back at you. Wonderful stuff. So, welcome to the Good Listening To podcast, and let's get cracking on the open road of how we're going to interview this lovely man. So, good to see you. I know it's slightly strange in New York and Washington DC and in America at the moment. I am right. You are based in NYC, aren't you? Obviously.
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah,
in Brooklyn. Lovely. So a clearing for you, first of all. So this is the podcast that brings you the clearing. What is a clearing, either metaphorically or literally, for you, Jay?
I just love seeing the empty space of a stage. I have two answers to that question. I think they're kind of related, even though they're completely different spaces. For me, emotionally, it is being on the Delaware shore, lying on the sand and letting the gravity just pull my ever increasing girth down into the sand and feeling the earth under me. Same thing applies to being in an empty theater, big black open space. Like I'm fascinated by, seeing the ground, seeing that there's plenty of space to run around or lie down and get physically into attacking the space. So it's a literal clearing, a nice empty beach at around 4:30 in the afternoon, or late at night, nice dark clean theater space for me.
Lovely answer. And I started thinking about a beached whale, but not you, dear, when you were
Oh,
getting
the tourist tried to push me in last time. They called in a bulldozer.
As a good God, I've been harpooned. I'm sure you
Exactly.
haven't.
The marine biologist showed up very upset.
And for those of you watching the sort of Zoom film version of this, Jay is by no means a beached whale. You're a very tall man as well, Jay, aren't you? I know you don't. You look about 4 inches on my screen, but how tall are you?
I'm 8 feet tall.
8 feet tall. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
it's quite something. Yeah.
I remember when I first met you. You know when you've had a Jay hug. It's great.
Oh, really? Oh, did I hurt you?
No, you're just. I'm quite big. I'm sort of six. Well, I'm shrinking. I'm 6'1", but actually, I got measured next to my daughter recently. She's going, "Oh no, you're not." So I'm
Oh,
between
no.
6'1". But how tall are you?
I'm 6'3".
I knew you were slightly bigger anyway. It's not a competition, but you're bigger or more awesome.
Well, the hug, if you mean it was a vigorous hug, yeah, I try not to stop until I feel their spine and their sternum kiss a little bit, and then we're done with the hug.
That's the technique you're going for. I
Yeah.
understand now with hindsight.
It's loving.
It is, and I love you for that right back. So yes, we may or may not talk about working
Do
voices.
you want to go into a breakout room right now, Chris?
Let's
Would
do
that?
that. Hey,
Okay.
let's go straight down there. Hunker down. I'll bring a harpoon, and all will be awesome. So we're in your clearing, either on the Delaware beach, as I understood it, and also in the empty space. So I'm going to bring a tree into your clearing now. So it's your choice. Do we bring the tree into the beach vista, or do we bring it into the theatre space? What would
Let's bring it into the beach, and as cliche as it may be, it's a nice leaning, coconut tree where there can be a hammock attached to it, but it is something that provides some shade, some structure, and is climbable.
You're the first person that's made it a coconut tree, so let's shake your coconuts. I love that. Because normally I'm wibbling on about apples and let's shake your tree to see which apples fall out. So let's shake your coconut tree to see which coconut milk and things come out.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So, and this is now the wonderful exercise using the tree, a metaphor of a storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Yeah.
where you've had 5 minutes or as long as you needed, Mr. J. Roderick, to think about 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail, squirrels, to get your attention, and then 1 quirky or unusual fact about you that we couldn't possibly know until you tell us. You can shake the coconuts as you'd like, so just get on the open road and just tell us, go wherever you'd like and pluck your coconuts to your heart's content.
4 things that shaped me, and this is where some comedy screeching to a halt happens. Losing my dad nearly 30 years ago definitely shaped me. Coming out after his death shaped me, and my ex-partner very frequently would tell me that my Gap card got lost in the mail, that I'm the world's least fabulous gay person you'll ever meet. So losing a parent, coming out, going to acting school, and
Hold that thought. So how old were you when your father died, if you don't mind me asking?
23.
And
So,
and did you nearly come out before his death, or was this just all combined?
the Gap card lost in the mail, I was pretty clueless about myself until late in life. And I could tell a bunch of bad jokes about how I didn't know it. My very first Halloween costume was a witch, a female witch, and that's fine. Gender fluidity early on.
Like
and and Wizard of Oz was my favorite movie from early on. So there should have been no surprise.
That's one of the big things, isn't it? Dorothy is the main gay icon,
Yeah,
complete
she
with red
is.
shoes and yellow brick road and all that shebang. I
Sheblang,
could have,
exactly.
I could have
That's my
told
middle
you.
name. Yeah, Sheblang. So yeah, um, that was over half my life ago.
And
As
how old are you
was
now, just to position the timeline?
I am 50 summers old.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So
It
sorry I
was
interrupted
really
you. So your
No,
dad,
it was really fun to turn 50 during the pandemic. It was a real hootenanny. We really did it up as a party. I think I had a cupcake from the supermarket and watched Columbo reruns.
party on
Uh,
dude. I love that.
um, so I would say that and moving to New York. So acting school, moving to New York, the death of a parent, and coming out. Four things that essentially shaped me as a kid who grew up in suburban Maryland in a rural area, in a pretty conservative area, not a backwoods, not Alabama, but definitely a small town where my mom and sister still happily reside. Lovely place, but those are the four big smacks to the gob that happened for me.
And they were a bit of a. They happened quickly as after the advent of your father's demise. Is
Yeah,
that?
I mean, all of these things happened around the same time. So I like to condense the things that shaped me into
Yes.
a short period of time. So all the pain happens all at once.
And
And it's
so
just
you.
been easy, smooth sailing since then.
Of
No
course.
problems.
So your authentic self was post your father. And what was your relationship like with your father? I'm not trying to analyze you. I'm just asking that
Yeah,
question.
he was a great guy, really funny man. Like him, I have a pretty volcanic temper sometimes. He, unlike me, was a big athlete and he played multiple sports, but he also wasn't so overly macho that he wasn't able and willing and happily affectionate with me. So he was a great guy, a workaholic. Um, and I just remember laughing with him a lot at things like, Mel Brooks movies and Carol Burnett, and he would laugh till tears were coursing down his face. And those are some of my best memories with him.
Lovely. I imagine him looking like you, but I don't really know. It's just what I'm picturing.
Yeah, definitely the same hairline, and he looked a lot like Jack Nicholson.
Ah, okay.
And now when I look in the mirror and I see, a 50 something man, I think, oh, dad, for a moment each time. So
Yes.
yeah.
Lovely stuff. And you did mention, but did you mention a sister in the mix there? How many siblings do you have?
Sister in the mix. That's how we think of her. We actually mixed her up from a dry kit, and she is a wonderful young woman. She's a therapist, works with youth who are struggling with mental health. She is a saint. She is a wonderful mother to a wonderful niece and nephew of mine. She and I, to this day, act like idiots on the phone together, doing really, really obnoxious voices. We call it the Maryland hag. And so it's this old woman that sits out on her porch and smokes and has a bad Maryland accent. And we just laugh and laugh, and it's funny to no one but us. But we scream laughing about these ridiculous characters we play. But
And
she
you're
is,
both doing the same characters
yeah,
as siblings swinging in the chair on the
yeah.
veranda.
It's really very sad. It's a whole picture in the mind of curlers and house coats and tobacco stained teeth. And these are characters that are from our childhood. These would be our mentors.
I love that. It's very Larson-esque, is what I'm hearing as well there. Mm.
Larson-esque meaning.
Oh, like Larson, the cartoonist Larson.
Oh, Gary Larson. Oh
Gary
yeah.
Larson.
Oh yeah. With the cat's eye
Yes.
glasses, absolutely, and the beehives. Yes, nailed it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and we love that. So we're still there, about to talk about now three things that inspire you.
Mm-hmm. Um, Dance. I'm not a dancer, but I'm inspired by watching dance. And there's many great dance outfits. Love watching Astaire and Rogers. Love watching the Nicholas brothers tap dance. These are all acts from back in the day. and love watching a group out of Philly called Palabolis. They are dancers, but also athletes and acrobats, and just the strength and agility involved. I envy that. I leave it feeling supercharged, even though I'm not nearly that adept. I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by the courage of people to stand up. The folks in Georgia this week who voted, stood out there for hours. Especially women of color who organized that vote, who continue to drive what progress there is politically in our country. So I'm inspired by that. Again, this soapbox I'm on is a little wobbly. I'm actually only 5'2", but the soapbox I'm on makes me 6'3". And my mother inspires me. My mother is a really funny lady. She is dry. She is in humor, and she is a fearless traveler. When she can return to traveling, I'm sure she will. And she and I laugh. She's really irreverent, and so she is both someone who's really given a lot to her community, but also in the family laughs constantly at herself, and taught me a lot about that growing up.
Wonderful. And
are these two too sincere?
No, I'm really enjoying it. It's steeped in your admiration of courage and people who have an energy through the dance. You made me think of Wilson, Keppel, and Betty whilst you were talking. They did the sand dance.
Oh wow! Tell me more about that. I know a tiny bit about that.
It's a sort of old black and white film of three guys wearing Egyptian gear, and they do an Egyptian sand dance. But I don't know why you just made me think of that when you were describing your love of energy and dance. Called Wilson, Keppel, and Betty, I think it is. But
are they British act from the old days?
Yes, but a very sort of grainy black and white film kicks into action. Because I love Laurel and Hart. In the silent comedy vein, who are your favourite heroes?
Buster Keaton's fabulous, and Chaplin. Although I, like you, am a huge Laurel and Hardy fan. I still watch it. It makes me shriek. Yes. The physical commitment, the cartoonish violence kills me.
Yes.
The heart too. I watched recently The General, Keaton's epic, and I'd forgotten, or maybe just had been white privilege blinders on, that it heroizes a Confederate, and so it's hard to watch that now. It's hard to find it funny or amusing. It is still an unbelievable production that they managed to somehow. It looks like he's actually on a train that's out of, and maybe he is. I don't know how Keaton didn't die in every picture he made, but for lefty geniuses, give me Chaplin anytime. Yeah, brilliant.
Lovely. And we're into the place of two things that never fail to grab your attention now. It doesn't matter if there's some overlap, by the way, because you're giving me lots of lovely resonance here anyway. But
I'm a huge food person, more and more so during COVID. And if the olfactory attention is going to get me first. So something that reminds me of a Maryland crab boil from my childhood, with the Old Bay seasoning and the steam and the umami and the mess and the bib and the gore and the guts and all of that stuff. If I see or smell something like that, I am immediately brought back to childhood and immediately wanted right away. So not much of impulse control.
Thank you for the word olfactory as well. I love that. A crab boil, an olfactory. I love that.
Oh yeah, it's a real olfactory. Actually, in Maryland, we might say, "You going down to the olfactory? That's where they make them things," And so that definitely gets my attention. And frankly, if I'm thinking about what's visually gets my attention, I had a different answer for this when we spoke recently, Chris, but I recently was just flipping channels, as I do not infrequently now in the pandemic, and just came across old Mel Brooks work, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, and the brilliance of that film. Very controversial, probably couldn't be made today, but Fearless, it's Richard Pryor's work, and just anytime there is really intelligent, old school, fearless, satirical, especially racism puncturing stuff, that really gets
Yes.
my attention. I love that stuff.
And Gene Wilder, by the way, was a Bristol Old Vic alumni, I
No
believe. And
kidding.
that's where I was. And so, yeah, so you mentioned
Huh.
Young Frankenstein, which made me think,
Yeah.
ooh. So,
Or do you mean Marty Feldman?
no, I think I mean Gene Wilder.
Oh,
I could be, be hashtag awkward if I've got that wrong, but I'll check my facts and get back to you.
okay.
And then I can do a
Okay.
disclaimer if I've got that completely wrong.
But both of them, and the amazing Cleavon Little in Blazing. It's just always, I've seen it a million times. The minute it's on TV, I'll watch it.
And Mel Brooks is still with us, isn't he? And he's had a lifelong wonderful friend who died recently.
Yeah, Carl Reiner.
Carl Reiner, thank you.
They were all but a married couple at the end. I gather, having dinner together every night as two
Yes.
widowers. And Reiner was brilliant,
Yeah.
sharp up until the end, I understand. And Mel Brooks is still going in his 90s, and that is truly inspiring to me too.
Wonderful. And a quirky or unusual fact about you that we couldn't possibly know until you now tell us.
I'm bald. No, okay. Let's have let let's have a
Lovely
better one.
feedback.
I would, a quirky or unusual fact. You teed me up for this, and I've been hemming and hawing on this the whole time. I'll go with, I am an online ordained minister who has officiated a wedding.
Oh,
It was one of those cheap and quick ordinations, but they actually took it seriously. And somewhere out there are two dear friends of mine who are actually married through the powers vested in me.
you have a certificate and everything?
I do. They sent you a certificate. They sent me. They didn't send you the certificate unless.
I didn't get
Did
it.
you forward that to me? Okay.
I didn't. I had nothing to do with your certification.
You are my attorney of record. They sent me a. I think they sent me a PDF or a JPEG of the certificate, but somehow it is legal. That's the gravity with which we take matrimony
Yes.
in the States, the thing that is fought over and bled over.
Jay said I was married, so it must be.
Exactly. I know someone who actually got their dog ordained, and the dog was positioned as the cleric and the officiant in something. So,
Oh, and forgive me, are you and Chip married?
we are not,
Okay.
but we are in every way except for that.
Aha.
And let's, yeah.
Moving on,
I
please.
my feet are awfully cold. Yeah.
And now we're moving you on away from the tree. We've finished shaking your coconuts, and thank you for delighting me with your coconuts. I love your coconuts.
Please
And
enjoy.
You did mention you're bald, and now I'm thinking of a coconut in a good way.
That's right.
Lovely.
It's
So now
pretty much a watery mass inside there too. So,
a lovely mushy cake within.
yeah.
The dome of awesomeness that is J. Rhoderick. So we're still in the clearing. We've still got your coconut tree. You can get in and out of the hammock as you please. And now it's going very Desert Island Discs now. And now you're going into the clearing to explore something called alchemy and gold now. So it's open to interpretation, a lovely, delicious storytelling metaphor. When you are at purpose and in flow, J. Rhoderick, what is it you love to bring when you're either teaching or instructing or acting? Just what's alchemy and gold represent for you?
I think it's when I see physically a manifestation of people relaxing and laughing. When I feel my introvert's face relax, like I always do with you, Chris, when I'm in a room as an instructor, or frankly around a dinner table, when I see people get into that position where they are letting themselves be vulnerable, when I see the shoulders go down, and if I can be some small part of being a good listener to people like you are to me right now, the gold is when people laugh in a work environment. when they're able to laugh in what may be a difficult, perhaps even without saying so much, a recovery or self-healing environment.
Yes.
If people are dealing with addiction or dealing with recovery in some way, and they're able to laugh about that. So I think laughter, kind, discovery-based laughter is a sacred thing, not nasty attacking laughter, but that for me, if I can be some small part of that, that is the alchemy and the gold.
I love that answer. The shoulder drop, the alchemy of the release of laughter and the freedom implicit within that. That's beautiful. Love that. So we are now at the point where I'm going to award you with a cake, where you're going to put a cherry on your cake. So any particular the type of cake we like here?
Oh, absolutely. German chocolate cake with, wait for it, coconut
Okie
in the
dokie.
frosting. That wasn't pre-planned.
German cake, chocolate with coconut. Okay.
I like that you've done the official name, German cake, chocolate, instead of German chocolate cake. It's nice. It's sort of
You're
the
very
official,
welcome.
right? Exactly how they put it in a biology textbook.
And in dropping a cheeky cherry onto your German chocolate cake with coconut, or you can just flop a coconut in there if you like. So this is now, it's what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given is one way you could go here, or it could be advice to your younger self.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by your very powerful story of your father not knowing who you are going to become. But anyway, you can go where you like. So it's best piece of advice. I'm not trying to drive any direction.
That's okay.
It's up to you.
I remember very few things. My long-term memory is not great. And this was said to me, maybe 6 months before Dad died. I was doing summer stock theater somewhere, and it was, I and a bunch of folks were apprentices. And
When you
I was
said
up
summer sock theatre, do you mean summer society, or you had acting with?
Did I say summer sock? Oh,
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Summer.
There's a million jokes there. Yeah, summer socks. Put on your summer socks, and we're going to do some theater. Summer stock theater. They may not have an equivalent in the UK, but it's where there are theater productions happening in the summers, and it's usually in a place out of a city. And in this case, it was up in beautiful Vermont. We worked our tails off, drank ourselves crazy every night, and it was a group of us. All working really hard, and we got really thick as thieves. And at one point, we all, as apprentices, got up on the stage, and the directors of the theater company had us each do a monologue. And I don't even remember what my monologue was, but I do remember one of my fellow apprentices, a woman who I had a huge crush on. So I don't know where we go with that.
Hello.
Hello. I guess there's a spectrum of human experience. She came up to me at the end and simply said, own your height, own your height. So for all the height jokes that we've had back and forth, I was always someone who slouched, probably have on this call still, but that idea of taking up the space, being enough, letting myself be okay with being who I am, maybe it contributed to self-knowledge, who knows? But given that I remember almost nothing from my early life, and I'm really bad at remembering quotes, she said, own your height. And
Just
I took
love
that. Yeah, I took it to heart.
It's be the king, and I suppose it nudged you towards, I suppose, just who am I really, standing here, owning myself and with my true majestic height. I like that.
Well, I mean, I won't call it majestic, but just being comfortable in my body. And as growing up as someone with an athlete father, with some issues around that, and kind of resenting sports and resenting athleticism, and then all of the sexual social norms connected to being a jock or not being a jock in theater.
Yeah.
I just walked around with a lot of big chip on my shoulder, and I am by no means cured of having chips on my shoulder, but that hearing her say that was so kind and so supportive, and it meant a lot. Still means a lot.
Lovely, beautiful answer. Stunning. And if I made, I mentioned at the beginning the sort of 7 ages of man, and all the men and women merely players, and each man has his entrance. Men and women have their entrances and their exits, and one man in his time plays many parts. His acts being 7 ages. Just to get a bit existential on your earth, how would you most like to be remembered? Would you think, Mr. J. Rhoderick?
I'd like to be remembered as well, I've been thinking a lot about on Zoom recently in the pandemic. I have a compulsion to try and make people comfortable through laughing, creating jokes, and hiding a little bit behind that. So as much as I'm trying to own my height, I'm still working on just being myself. So I would like to have people remember me as a loyal friend. I've got some repair work to do on that. I have been out of touch with people for a long time, but I would like to be known as someone who is a loyal friend. I don't care if people think that I'm brilliant or funny. I do want to be remembered as someone present in people's lives. And as having the best set of legs east of the Mississippi.
Back to Dorothy.
I couldn't just let it sit. I had to come back and do a little bit there.
I know. I like you for the yes and the extra build. Yes and you, there goes Dorothy in the yellow brick road.
There, exactly.
Those beautiful legs with yellow tights, baby.
Oh yeah, cross-gartered. How about that? Getting a little
Malvolio.
Shakespeare, right?
Hey, see what you did? Have you played Malvolio?
I would love to have played Malvolio. No, never done Twelfth Night. I did see the Mark Rylance version, at which I busted a gut.
Yes.
That was screaming laughing.
And was with Stephen Fry as well, was it?
Yeah.
Was it that production?
Malvolio.
And Mark Rylance is one of my absolute all-time favorite actors.
Of course. He's brilliant. And I remember the physical choice he made in the walk in the dress. The prim sort of bounce in his petticoats.
Like a dance choice. Your love of dance as well.
Yeah.
The movement implicit. And by the way, not to take anything away from that delicious Park point of view, saying you just want to be remembered for somebody who is a loyal friend. And I just think that's so beautiful. Lovely.
Thanks. It seems a little generic. I think anyone can say it, but I have to tell you, it's hard. I've come by it the hard way because I've spent a lot of years avoiding things and doing other things instead of building friendships. And so this pandemic and other things and even this conversation here is just trying to reconnect with people. I think that's really important, especially as all hell's breaking loose in our streets.
Yes. And should our listeners want to find out more about Mr. J. Rhoderick, where can we find out more about you on the interweb? Because we haven't talked about Centralia. You can plug what you'd like to do about where we can find out more about you.
Centralia's got a podcast that is on Facebook, and I'm not a part of it, but I fully endorse it. I consider it my family, and we interview a lot of improvisers. We share our thoughts on things, and we're four middle-aged white guys, so that is limited appeal in and of itself. I get, but yeah, we are present on Facebook that way. I'm not a big social media guy. In terms of what I post, I follow it way too much, but BizProv is an entity that I have put together, and we do a lot of business work. So I'm not going to plug the business here with you.
You're very welcome. It's wherever you want to go on the open road of this is your moment in the sunshine. So
yeah, bizprovgroup.com is my little effort working with groups and organizations to try and bring a little bit more playfulness. Also, am rolling out something that's more about writing with a dear friend from years ago, and that's one of the friendships I'm really grateful has deepened and enriched. Jeff Petru and I are working on something called the Writing Games, and that is something we're rolling out and piloting right now. He's probably going to kill me for unveiling it right now, but it's trying to apply the principles of improvisation and even meditation to writing. And as someone who's just mostly blabbed and improvised in his creative life, the idea of actually on paper becoming more of a writer is so cool.
Love
And
that.
that's something I'm working on too.
Lovely. And I've known you since 2010 because we also met through the wonderful entity that is Working Voices as well. And you do evoke loyalty. If I was there, and it was appropriate in the pandemic times, I'd give you a big hug back and
Likewise.
get your own spine to meet your sternum right back at you.
Likewise, you're a dear guy. You're one of those people that, though we don't speak very often, I feel like there's an instant, and the minute we met, there was an instant affinity and ease. And you make me laugh so damn much. You're a great dad. You're a great, courageous person who walks the talk and lives his art. And also, you somehow managed to look younger and younger as the years have gone by. So you looked like hell 10 years ago. Now you look like a strapping young stud.
Thank you very much. I will take that compliment, you lovely man. So, you have been listening to the gorgeous Jay Rhoderick on the Good Listening To podcast with me, Chris Grimes. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your story and for joining me in the clearing for your moment in the sunshine, Mr. Rhoderick.
Thanks, Chris. And I appreciate you making me more gorgeous for keeping it mostly a listened to experience for people. I've got a face for radio.
Good night.
Good night.